Award-winning Canadian poet Yvonne Blomer reimagines the Greek myth of Persephone in Death of Persephone, a Murder. Quote, hard-boiled detective tropes meet classical myths and free-form poetry. A breathtaking work of imaginative cross-pollination, attests Will Ferguson, Giller Prize-winning author. I'm Carol Harmon, and you are listening to Writers Radio. Yvonne joins me from Victoria on Vancouver Island in Canada, where she is a former poet laureate, to read from and discuss her book. To begin, I will read Yvonne's preface, which follows the dramatis personae like a prologue addressed to the audience in a Shakespeare play. She grew up on Batterson Drive, hop-skip from the underground. Not a battered child, but a bat taken from its home cave and carefully caged is still abused and misused. Molestation can be a man watching you sleep, the creep of scented flowers, a fixation, eyes always on you. If love is a battlefield, Stephanie is on the battlefront. And yet she is non-combative. She dodges the uncle, slips through the childhood's incubation, and once woman, all acrobat, tries to escape, not fully understanding the reprobate who's raised her. If you are fearing the demise of father figure Zeus, he masturbates on the illusion of power. God of action passively watches the abuse of daughter-niece. Full of spark, Cancer's his due. Mother Goddess is everywhere, in weather, rain, and seed, in tree and plant. Crippled by Hades' theft and by fear, she can't follow, but sends everything she can, not the serpent, but the poppy, not the narcissus, but the barley and the stranger, backlit and golden. Here under deluged streets, water fills the underground, mildews the unseen one, Uncle H.
You want me to just start then?
Yeah, why don't you just read Fruit Bats?
Okay. Pteropus, fruit bat. 1. The feet of the fruit bat are the small hands of a human child. The nose, a dog's nose, calm in the year of the rat, keeper of balance, watchful dog, ever watched bat. Thumbs and fingers, soft dermis of membrane. Can the elongated hands of the bat be attentive? Can the wingspan? Blame the bat when humans falter. Blame the wolf or fox when chicks get eaten, while farmers' fences encroach into wilder spaces. Blame the girl, her uncle's obsession. 2. Screws, secateurs, twine, and stakes, cages for birds or bats, a girl perhaps, such honeyed wood, wooden slats, rope, headlamps. Spelunk deep into the earth, peek up, crepuscular fruit bats, sweet sleeping breath, quiet hunger. 3. Above on the meadow, where asphodel and daisies grow, a girl in a floral dress braids a chain. Below, where the roots and bulbs of narcissus burrow, the small feet of bats cling. And from water beads on the trichomes of these underground appendages, the fruit bat quenches its thirst. 4. Did you call her Bat Girl? Did her uncle wear a bad guy mask? Did he offer her fruit and batty? She ate it. Blind, did she bat her eyes at him. 5. Does this city have a system of tunnels? Does it have an underground of moving trains and unending caves? Above, great cathedrals loom. Westminster, St. Sophia, a skyscraper like Burj Khalifa, or a cenote like those in Tulum? If these landmarks, how about fruit trees of emerald leaf and amber sweet? If a cenote, where the earthy bitter waters, the watersheds? Where the megabat on its tiny endangered peds, reaching to span a great and cavernous underground. Its thigh-tail membrane stretched, wings upheld for balance, while it dips and drinks from a slow tainted river. 6. Blue sky on a cold winter day, after days of floodwaters and gray. The world, a world of lives lived off carbon emissions. Crepuscular, roosting, dog-like, face muzzled and gray, endangered wings, sharply curved claws. 7. O bat, O maiden child, O myth makers and storytellers, look what we've done. Demonized the bat, harvested it, mummified it, sold it online, stressed, starved, caged, poisoned it, frozen it in vampire tales, loss, lose, lumbering. 8. Roosting one, flying fox, insect eater, we've broken the watersheds. We've lit up the caves like devils with our plastic horns. We've let the girl get taken again, and again we've marked her grave with pale, nocturnal, bleat and trill keening bats.
Wonderful. You're a wonderful reader.
Thank you. Thanks.
The strong environmental theme that runs all the way through this poem really interests me. Would you like to speak about that a bit?
Stephanie and her mother Demeter are very closely tied to the environment, to crops and growth. And I also, in Death of Persephone, wanted to tie climate change to them and to the abduction of this young girl and violence to women, link it to violence to planet. I wrote this poem or was working on it in the early days of the pandemic. And in those early days, bats were being blamed for many things. It really frustrates me because often if an animal or creature spreads disease to humans, invariably the fault of that actually lies with the humans, not the animal or creature. And it's the same reaction when a woman experiences violence. The woman is subjugated to questions about her behavior rather than the perpetrator of the violence. So that was a big part of this book and this poem especially. And the bat is one of the creatures linked to Persephone.
And the location where Stephanie grows up is the underground of a city, is the region of bat caves. So there's that whole linkage too, being taken away from nature.
That's right. She forgets that she's linked to nature because of that removal. In the bat poem, when there's a girl picking flowers, I think about the bats under the earth where the roots of those flowers are growing.
You've also added another really interesting layer of contextualization by setting this as a murder. Would you read some of D.I. Boca?
D.I. Boca's name, though it's spelt differently, comes from the Italian. There's a sculpture called The Mouth of Truth, and that's where his name comes from. had a lot of fun with different symbolism, partly because I'm writing from myth. In chapter 1, we meet D.I. Boca. There's 2 timelines in the book, in a sense, Boca's and Stephanie's, and she's growing up throughout the book while he's kind of in a single timeline of these murdered women. Case notes, D.I. Boca, 1 of 36. Time after time they're called. From beats patrol to drive time response, the sirens call to order. Chaos drawn toward death, a spider to a corner. He seizes back control, tries to, through evidence, hard-lined questions asked. Tonight, rain, the roads washed, everlasting damp, beauty slaughtered, another young woman, brunette, blonde, redhead, shoe missing, night rain soaked, a stale cigarette. Cuts on her palms, bruised neck. Had she some foreknowledge? Had he? Time and the bodies slipping, a clock winding down. Dragged and bedraggled, skin cut, torn, bruised. Later, the autopsy will show what eyes won't see. Fury, distance between.
Wow. Wonderful.
The next poem is The City One, and in the book, I wanted the city and the underground to work like characters. So each of those locations have several poems. The City One. On city streets, rain, and on the great oak's leaves, rain our open mouths. What is a city? A woman walks, her feet pound the laneways and avenues of a great city. From old town to new, the city lives, a scaled and curled beast. Another woman loses her shoe running. Another catches a note of song. Still another graffitis a mural on a theater wall. What is a city? It is a river that rises from the dark earth. It is traffic lights, headlights, dark. It is darkness. Fear is a city in every woman, and the police, a clique of men. Language fills the pores. Ville, herb, poli. The city has an eye, and the city has a million eyes.
That's a very interesting idea that the city and the underground are both characters.
I wanted it to have a kind of ambiance, I guess, have a mood based on these 2 aspects.
But it also implies that the city itself and the underground have agency, that they shape events in an almost conscious way.
I think they each offer hiding places and escapes and doorways. And Stephanie wants to own the city in a way. She knows the city well once she leaves the underground. She wants to be able to walk the city. That's a big part of being a woman in the world, is that, there's that whole movement for women to take back the night, to be able to walk a city without fear.
Do you walk the city without fear?
No, I don't think so. I don't wear any earbuds or anything when I walk, so I do a lot to keep safe. I'm determined to walk the city. I'm determined to do what I want to do, or cycle. These days, I really like how there's more movements of if we all learn to keep an eye out for the signs of things, then we can look after each other. I really like that.
Another theme that runs all the way through this poem is who's to blame. Okay, we have another D.I. Boca.
So to set up the case notes, they are sonnets and they're all linked. So where the case notes 1 ended, case notes 2 begins. Case notes D.I. Boca 2 of 36. Distance between Old Town and the police station. He's called because of connections, detection, his job. Called because evidence. He drives the short distance, arrives knowing already the impossible task. Crude city prowls with another shattered life. Fills the papers, and he, the clumsy cop, the throngs want to see fix it. Watch him sleuth. Celebrate this live streamed with crisp tacos, poutine, wine, and amateur guesses spilling. Her ID, he asks the on-scene officer, who shakes his head. Another woman killed on this city's dark streets. The officer watches Boca, his loose, shapeless suit.
And then Descendant.
Yeah, so we enter chapter 2 where we meet Stephanie for the first time. Descendant. Change in her pocket. Stephanie hops, skips to the escalator, descends ever deeper to the best bubblegum machine in the farthest corner where chandeliers like pocket change tinkle. And Tom, her friend, hides from his grumpy father, who would rather be a truck driver, maybe a medic, a gardener, than work cleaning the uncleanable floors of this derelict subway system. They throw rocks down caverns. Listen, she says, listen. But they never hear them land. They trample flowers small as her pinky nail that find light enough to grow in these muddy crevices. Light along mossy tunnel walls. She scrapes a nail through. Tom mentions his mother, but Stephanie shuns the very idea. Meh, she says, I never had a mother. The underground is a maze of secret places, delights, Uncle H's deep tenor, Tom's father's longing, both wanting something else. How far can you see in the dark? Tom asks. Way farther than you, boy, she shouts to him. They chase each other up and up winding trails, steep staircases pop out in the city, blind in the light. Race around the great oak tree, leaves settle at their feet. She kicks them, crushes the dried leaves, chases Tom back down and down to Uncle's souvlaki, Uncle's lamb shoulder, his pork shank, the meat sliced thin, served on pita, a pinch of lemon and dill. Her braided hair, black clothes, her red keds squeak as she runs into each mazed and dark place.
Wow. So Uncle's souvlaki, he runs a souvlaki business in the underground.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tom?
Tom is a friend she meets down there, and his dad is a cleaner in the underground, and they become friends just because they're hanging out down there. And I felt she needed a friend. And I also wanted some friendly men in the book, I think. Tom is really an essential character in some ways, even though he's just quietly there in the background quite a bit. I wanted her to be just full of life as a young girl. She doesn't remember how she got there or where her mother is, but she's a curious person and she's into living. She's very alive. I really wanted her to be that way.
Yeah, that really comes across. Shall we continue with the underground? I feel like we're sinking down, down, down into the depth.
Yeah, I really wanted that feeling. I was in London when I was writing this years ago, and there was some subway station where you literally felt like cattle going to the slaughter. You would go down and then you'd walk these narrow tunnels to go further down and down and down. I don't really like the underground system. That sensation, you're being led, your willpower leaves you in some ways, and that it's a world unto its own as well. Dark, gilded, rivered. The subway system is a world. It is a cavern of emergency exit red and burnt timber black. Dark, gilded, channeled. The subway system is a nightclub, a cafe, golden arches and mirrored mosaic spaces. Dark, gilded, roving. Trains move below the roots of the great oak, below the roots of the dark elm and the horse chestnut. A world moves, riven. Dark, gilded, corridored. Trains are coursers in the veins of iron ore, trace minerals, rare earths. Dark, gilded, molten. The subway is everlasting dusk, a vista of darkness. An overpass built for the serpent tram, screech of trains, of human voices, of dark, writhing movement. The subway is commerce and trade, bodies and goods, named and unnamed.
I love the image of being beneath the roots of these great trees. All of this is still available. It's up there, still growing, alive, and down there is the dark world.
And echoing the girl in the bat poem, picking the flowers with the bats underneath. If we're thinking about climate change and protection of the planet, we mark every layer in a way humanity does. We're both marking the top, but we're also marking the underneath. We're digging for minerals. We're doing all this. We're changing everything. I think the way myth works, it sits under our belief systems. We have these systems of beliefs about women, about young girls, and I think they come from mythology in a way. Stephanie turns. "What the?" she says, and Uncle H turns the corner to look in her room. "It's a dress," he shrugs. "For your birthday?" His hands loose hooks. "What's this?" he asks. "For university," she says. The letter refolds at its creases. On her birthday, they go down past the souvlaki. He knows the tunnels, he thinks, better than her. He wants to hold her hand, but she shrinks from him. He had the Italian Gregor make pasta, set up a table in the deep recesses, where paintings of the Mona Lisa, sure copies, but whatever, and sculptures and pure, clean lines of graffiti mark the walls, and the candlelight dances off them, and they dine. "Happy birthday, niece," he says. And she says, "Thanks, Uncle H." Shy, suddenly gone the forthright, talkative kid, though that half grin, and he pours her some red wine, and she giggles, but briefly. Going to go to university, and he nods, knowing this would come. He cracks his knuckles, which is as threatening as he thinks it might be. "Remember to come back," he says, and she nods, and 18, she says. "Thanks for raising me," she says. "Lately strange dreams," and he says, "Dreams are just dreams, your choices like ghosts hovering." He says, "Don't forget to come back to me and leave Tom, he'll do fine, and don't dwell on those dreams, they're not memories." And he nearly says something of her mother, but he visibly shakes his head, and she pretends she doesn't know what he's thinking. Later, he finds a hidden corridor and shows her hieroglyphics on the deep walls, and she stumbles in astonishment. Women in gold and green and glory, women and trees and water flowing, a fountain and its depths. And he gets her to look away and reminds her to forget about those dreams, cursing the walls for not showing battle scenes or whatever, a lightning bolt, a burnt cavern of a tree, a wild young man, a horse, a dog, a sprig of wheat, a chariot even. But she's leaving. Her plan is to leave. Any day now, university and her leaving, her strange dreams, her remembering.
So we all grow up believing one thing, and then gradually our eyes are opened to other realities.
In deciding she's going to leave, she starts having these dreams that are memories.
Nobody remembers their really early life,
Mm-hmm.
and yet it must all be in there somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's suppressed in some ways by someone else as well, they're telling stories of a different truth. It's hard. You just believe it. You don't know. Myth is meant to help us understand the world around us. But we've started using myth. We've flipped it in a way, using myth to show us how to behave.
The term myth has been turned upside down where it's used pejoratively. It's superstition and not real.
Yeah.
Devaluing ancient way of knowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to understand seasons and birth and death and all those things.
Would you speak about corridor?
Sure. Corridors are a big part of mythology, these secret ways of moving between the worlds. And I wanted that to sort of sit throughout the book as well. I wanted the setting, the city and the underground, to be any city in the world. I began in Montreal, but wanted it to not be just Montreal, or not just the specific Montreal, but any Montreal in a way, any city in the world. And Montreal has Indigenous history about the mountain and what grains and crops grew there. And there's such a huge problem in Canada right now with missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I wanted to ensure that the book included them in this story, and that move Persephone out of Greek and allow her to represent women more broadly. Those were the thoughts that led me to this poem. corridor. Say Persephone, and corn, wheat, olives. The Mediterranean comes to mind. Ancient stone acropolis, gods fixed in place and time. Where the Persephone of camas and salmonberry, orca, whale, or gray, the goddess of fertile trees, blue bead lily, choke cherry, cloudberry, gods or totems, the maiden taken is not just in our imagination. Walking home this highway of a corridor of vanished beings, violence, an erasure of earth and what is fertile, an erasure of women and deep knowledge. Language the tongue cannot curl to, yet still tongues do. Persephone, maiden taken, is in everything. Iconic girl, expected violence. History on repeat. Legend, myth, religion. We are breaking the code. She is make-believe. She is real. Smacked down, she rises. Human, enduring.
That's a very hopeful end to that poem.
I guess it's hope. It's to recognize that these are women who are dying, not mythological creatures in one way. And it's the planet, not some vague idea of something, but something real that's being damaged. And yeah, I do have hope that we'll figure out how not to keep moving towards violence.
So now we return to D.I. Boka.
Yeah. So he's been going along, doing his job. He is the kind of noir detective aspect of the book. I know the book is very serious, but it's also quite playful in the poetry and in how I'm using myth and how I'm using the detective. I'm always hopeful that while it's quite a serious book, people are also picking up on the kind of play and interplay between many different things. And Boka is one of those. I had a lot of fun writing and rewriting this character. And yeah, so here he is a bit later in the story. Case notes, D.I. Boka, 8 of 36. "10 years ago, Boka found a girl, dead, her blood, memory, a raised scar he traces. The graffiti, the paper whites repeat in pictures at every scene. He showers, gets to work, no reports yet on the victims. The elevator hums, down to cold cases. He finds the photos of his first case, no paper whites back then, no graffiti. When? He searches the images, serpent and flowers, finds a note about a case, Greece, decades old. What now, he thinks, what now? He drives to last night's crime scene. Forensics still working. He walks the perimeter, looks down alleys, under window frames until he finds it, the serpent.
Do you read mysteries?
I do. It's my dream to write a murder mystery. So now I have. And these graffitis are part of him solving it and going back in time. And the graffiti was really fun as well, like having the Graffiti artists tag spots where women have been murdered, and another graffiti artist over tags them because she's so mad. And it was a lot of fun doing that. The goddess Hecate is in the book, but she is a graffiti art done by the goddess Athena on a wall in the city. She's got 3 ways of seeing the world. So that was really fun to do. I wanted strong women, I wanted nice men, I wanted the bad guys, all those kind of fun elements that go into murder mystery, as well as quite a serious book of poems.
And finally, we come to Demeter.
Yes, at last. She's been hidden.
She's being alluded to.
She's been alluded to. She was silenced by Uncle H, and then we finally get to meet her. Postcard from her mother. And in this poem, the postcard is numbered 5, so that the reader knows at this time in the book that there's 4 more somewhere. Postcard from her mother. I'm writing you from Greece. I know you are free of H. I've sent a friend my heart in him. If you are the wild bird, I am the nest in the tree, your life a gift to me.
It's amazing how you've managed to capture in such a brief fragment so much.
Yes, tricky. If we're always focusing on the dark, and if I'm writing about the dark and making the dark kind of beautiful as well, just because of language and poetry, I wanted to up the ante in a way and allow the mother to really resonate, even though you only get the tiniest bit from her. I think that was so important. What happens to Stephanie is in the title of the book. It's called Death of Persephone, a Murder. Stephanie is the character that represents Persephone and represents every woman. The myth is trying to help us understand seasons. When Persephone is separated from Demeter, we have fall and winter. Persephone is in the underground with Hades. The other 2 seasons, we have spring and summer when she's returned to her mother. In order to break that, she had to die in the book. There's many poems titled Shade of Persephone. She's still occupying the city in a way. She feels impatient with Detective Boca. This is her voice from the underground. Shade of Persephone. Any day I say, any day I say, spare me. Spare sound in this old alley, spare parts, DNA trailing behind me. Spare me any day. Sunlight in a living garden, spare me what's lost. Flesh of fruit, fruits fine rot. Spare anything lost. Spare the living girl I was.
She needed to die in the book because the book needed to make its point. And had she not died, had it just been, oh, she's the one that made it through,
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been as powerful.
Yeah, I think so. And I think I knew that intuitively early on. I also didn't want to reenact violence in the book. So it took me a long time and work with my editor. It needed to be an active moment in the book because we so often make it a passive thing that happened.
Yes.
A woman was murdered instead of a man murdered a woman. And so I needed to rewrite that myth as well. Persephone. Pear or pomegranate, crackling fluorescence in the dark. She is clear sweet water, yellow lily, crocus of eye blue, sky blue.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to Yvonne Blomer reading from Death of Persephone, A Murder, which was published in 2024 by Caitlin Press, a vibrant literary press in Qualicum Beach, Canada. Visit YvonneBlomer.com and listen to her bio on Writers Radio to discover more about this fascinating poet and her work. This episode is also available as a downloadable podcast at writersradio.ca or your favorite podcast provider. Death of Persephone is available in bookstores across Canada or from Amazon internationally. Thank you, Ingrid Rose, my wonderful co-host and producer, and Gary Sill, our sound engineer, who creates original music for each program. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Writers Radio, a non-commercial collaborative project which presents talented writers reading their own work. These stories, essays, and conversations revisit the long tradition of oral storytelling that connects us to the inspiration behind the words. Be sure to check the website, writersradio.ca, to subscribe to our free notifications list. It's also a way of letting the writers know you are there and appreciating their creative work.
Writers Radio broadcasts from Half Moon Bay on the Sunshine Coast in Canada, traditional tribal land of the Sechelt Nation of the Coast Salish peoples. We express our gratitude for their wisdom teachings and land stewardship.